Story 1. I went from burnout is normal to realizing it is absolutely not. Story 2. I am much happier now. I have more time to pursue my own interests rather than working for my employers. Story 3. I left the army to become a paramedic. Being able to sleep in my own bed every day has been incredible. The reduced stress makes me feel reborn. Pay is similar, but I work significantly fewer hours, 84 hours every 2 weeks, so I have far more free time. Being a paramedic is much easier and less stressful than dealing with the nearly illiterate people I was previously legally obligated to listen to. At least now I simply treat them and move on. Story 4. I know people who have moved from high-stress roles to low-stress roles for the same pay because many leadership roles do not come with much additional compensation. This usually works well for them. Story 5. I took a huge pay cut to leave my project manager position and join a company with a completely different workplace culture. There is much less stress, and within a year I was already earning more than I did in my high-stress job. Even without the higher pay, it was totally worth it. You cannot put a price on waking up each morning without that sinking anxiety in your stomach. What a welcome change. Story 6. I do not know. I have always worked in high-stress roles for low pay. Story 7. This may not be exactly what you mean, but when I was in my early 20s, I worked for about 15 months in recruitment in the United Kingdom, 3 months in executive headhunting, then 12 months at a graduate recruitment company. It was really tough. We were not a great company, so we got poor roles with insufficient pay or with low-quality employers or both, and we struggled to place people. The chief executive officer was wealthy and a difficult person who was not afraid to get angry with staff, including the young 20-year-olds on his team. I earned some commission, but the company often tried to withhold it, so pay was not great either. After a year, I had had enough and took a temporary job with the National Health Service helping with interviews for trainee doctors. We put candidates in rooms at specific times, knocked on doors to indicate time was up, and shuttled people around the event center or hotel where we were based. Food was provided, so in a hotel you had a buffet lunch. I also did tedious office work. I remember I spent 2 weeks scanning in general practitioner recruitment paperwork. Every few hours I would go down to the event center, log into the wireless network, and download a new episode of the podcast serial to listen to while I worked. Without exaggeration, those 2 weeks were some of the happiest of my life, going from such a pressurized, competitive role to not being bothered by anyone, listening to podcasts or reading books all day, and being appreciated for helping was transformative. My partner said I was a completely different person. I cannot tell you how good it felt. For the first time since graduating, I actually felt happy. I remember thinking it was really strange. I had time for hobbies, as not all my energy had to be focused on anxiety about work. All I felt on Sunday nights was mild annoyance at going back to work, not a full-blown panic attack. I was even paid more as a temporary worker. I ended up there permanently, working full-time for almost 4 years, and I received a promotion as well. Story 8. This is me. This past year, I went from more than 10 years leading corporate development at a private equity portfolio company. I was responsible for sourcing transactions through post-closing integration. Most transactions had cross-border complexities. I took a 30% pay cut this past year to join a startup, which has been disappointingly slow. On day 1, I was floored that I could wake up and not grab my phone to see what problems I had accumulated overnight. It was years of habit and muscle memory. That change was immediate and total. My workdays had been 12 hours or longer, and I would regularly go into the office for a half day on Sundays. Supporting international efforts meant my meetings often started at 6 a.m. I had not been sleeping through the night in years. I thought that was just how I was wired and did not think twice about it because I did not wake up stressed or panicked. I functioned during the day. My sleep normalized within the first week, which was a huge eye-opener. I went from days filled with a dozen meetings and working nights on email, spreadsheets, and presentations to having nothing on my calendar for days at a time. I never really felt stress, hatred, negativity, or contempt. My partner said I was actually better at home when I was in the middle of a deal. A senior executive said that the worse things got, the better I performed. I had 15 years of riding a wave of abnormal stress that I did not know I was riding. The unexpected lesson of taking less pay and less apparent stress is that I experienced some depression, and I may still be experiencing it at this startup. While I no longer work nights or weekends, I feel worth less as a person. Less pay has changed my perspective on working extra hours. I feel my new employer does not pay me enough to do that, which I know is short-sighted for a startup. My problems at work are less challenging and someone seems to think I am less valuable than before. I have struggled with the idea that I may have professionally peaked. That may change with the startup's success, but time will tell. I would catch another wave in a heartbeat. I have baggage. This is mine. Story 9. My wife went from working as an associate at a large law firm to becoming a dietitian. After 6 years, she was totally burned out and developed what we believe were stress-induced food intolerances. She is much happier and can see that she is helping people. To be honest, she tends to run at high stress all the time, and the lower stress job did not fully change that. I moved from a toxic high stress job to a place with a much better culture and the same pay. It was a 10 out of 10 move. Story 10. I am paid $7 an hour less and I get up earlier, but the hiring manager baked me a chocolate cake for my birthday because I had asked. They also gave me a card and cheered for me. They support me, laugh with me, and get out of my way so I can learn. I don't know. I keep trying to convince myself to go back to college to become an insurance agent or a welder, but I just cannot seem to do it. I still make enough to live on and do not dread the morning. I am happy to go the extra mile when asked because it is infrequent and does not drain my life outside work. Waking up at 6:45 a.m. Still really sucks, though it is about as bad as waking at 8:30 a.m. Was for the other job, given how exhausted I was every day. Story 11. I miss the money, but I love having much more time to do the things I want. You can't have it both ways, unfortunately. Story 12. The highest stress job I have ever had was working in fast food. It was non-stop, 30-second bursts of pressure, with the possibility of customers screaming at you for things outside your control. I can only imagine it is worse now, since the chance of being physically attacked is probably much higher than when I did the job. Now I sit at my computer clicking through spreadsheets and dashboards. 98% of the time, if something goes wrong, I can blame it on outside forces. If the same thing occurs more than once a month, I probably need to develop a mitigation plan. I also drive around the warehouse a few times a day to let workers know I am available if they need to complain. Story 13. I sometimes missed the money and the stress, so I moved back to the higher stress role because I was bored. Story 14. Boring, brain-rotting work with unmotivated and surprisingly toxic people. Story 15. Once I calculated the difference in hours I was working, I found I was paid more in the lower role. About a year later, I was promoted and earned more than I had in my high-stress position while doing far less work. Story 16. Instead of a Bavarian Motor Works car, I got to see my children grow up. They are in their 30s and we remain close. That is worth far more than any car. Story 17. I managed a retail store for an international chain. The salary and benefits were standard. I worked all day in an ugly store with poor lighting and the same awful music on the sound system. Corporate always demanded more from us, as if any of us cared. They expected us to tell customers, "Please buy more." Corporate said so. The customers would politely hand over their money, saying they did not know. Managers in suits would come by, walk around, tell us to move displays, act as if they had earned their pay, and then leave. The next year they would have us move things back and present it as revolutionary thinking, as if they had their finger on the pulse. I found a different job and gave my district manager and regional manager 4 days' notice. On the 5th day, I started my new job as a laborer at a plant nursery, moving soil and seedlings from dawn. I worked outside in all weather year-round. It was minimum wage and no overtime for agricultural workers, so long days were paid at straight time. One day I was alone in a greenhouse, with only the sound of sprinklers and the wind. A bird landed on a pipe and sang. It was a sunny, warm morning around 7. No advertising or bad music, no fluorescent lights, no chatting voices, no phones or constant beeping. It was probably the best workday I ever had because of how much it changed me. I later heard from staff that on that fifth day, no one opened the store in the morning. The district manager and the regional manager did not act on my resignation. I had not changed the schedule because it would have been my day to open. One employee said he stopped by in the early afternoon and found the store locked. The other staff who would have been there could not open it and, knowing I had quit, went home until instructed otherwise. That made me feel good. Story 18. I retired. I cannot imagine a less stressful life than this. My income dropped by about 50%, but it is still enough for me to live comfortably and indulge my hobbies. It worked out well for me. Story 19. It was life-changing. I left a very stressful job in waste management to teach at a community college. My stress level dropped significantly, and my overall quality of life improved dramatically. I had to make lifestyle changes because my pay dropped substantially at first. After about 4 years, things evened out, and I have no regrets. Story 20. I left a high-stress but extremely well-paid job for a low-stress position that pays far less. On occasion, I miss the excitement of the old job, but on the whole, I am very happy. My health and relationships have improved, and I have had time to enjoy creative hobbies. I have had to make drastic changes to how I spend money. Now I budget carefully and spend far less on eating out and clothing. To be honest, I found the financial changes the easiest. It turns out a lot of my spending was to compensate for my high stress. Story 21. After 15 years in aviation, I went to work in footwear. My blood pressure went down and I sleep through the night. My boss often reminds me that pallets of shoes and airplanes follow very different timetables. If you do not get planes out on time, the gate hold pile starts within minutes. Loading a tractor trailer at the warehouse can take an extra hour, and nothing happens. The contrast is striking. Story 22. I was director of information technology and software development for 21 years at a medium-sized service firm serving the insurance industry. It burned me out entirely, taking me to the brink of a nervous breakdown as the technical requirements grew exponentially while the business did not increase my resources. I quit and am living off investments, making a few well-timed trades as the market presents opportunities. I am not sure what is next. Maybe this is all I will need. All I know is I can breathe again, and I am done with corporate nonsense unless I own the company. Story 23. I don't care if I'm struggling. The money was not worth my soul and sanity slowly eroding every day. I may still have financial anxiety and my quality of life may not be where I want, but I will never go back to a high-stress job I loathe just for more money. Story 24. I was a cook for about a year and a half at my last job. Between the staff being critical about anything I made, my boss being bad at ordering food and scheduling, and having to be in charge of coworkers who showed up drunk and played the victim, I stepped down and eventually left. I'm now a dishwasher in the same kind of environment at a different place, and it's much more relaxing. I sit in my corner, scrub dishes, and walk around the building a bit. Half the people I work with resent that I have free time, and those who technically have authority over me have asked me to take a cook's position several times over the past year. No, I'm just chilling. The new place pays me the same as a dishwasher as the old place paid me as a cook. Story 25. I practiced as a pharmacist for 18 years. Around 2010, the profession rapidly changed into something I did not recognize. I walked away in 2012. While I remain licensed, I have decided not to renew my license next time, and I have never regretted that decision. I have mostly resold books in the meantime. That income is not enough to make a living, but I am thankful I do not have to worry about that. I did not have children and I did not live beyond my means. Story 26. Most people I have talked to say the pay cut stings at first, but the peace hits like a drug. You do not realize how fried you were until you suddenly have evenings when you are not spiraling about work. The lifestyle shift can be rough, but mentally it feels like getting your personality back. Many say they would never go back, even for twice their previous salary. Story 27. It's going well. I'm a nurse. The pay was not great. I made $40 per hour as an agency nurse in nursing homes, psychiatric units, and other settings, and now I work from home for $24 per hour. It is a massive pay decrease, but I cook my meals. I do not get pre-shift anxiety, And on my days off, I can spend time with my family and actually do things. When you spend 36 or more hours a week in fight or flight and then no longer have to do that, it is a huge boost. I feel like my nervous system is healing. Story 28. I still look back on that time as the period when I earned the most money. The pay was nice, but it did not outweigh the stress and lack of personal time. So I am glad I left. Everyone in the industry knows the company I worked for and its high pressure and standards, which made my job search easier. In short, I appreciated being there then, but I now prefer a less demanding job that still pays well. Story 29. I probably would not be alive if I had not left that job when I did. Cost a lot of money, millions actually. Today I earn a normal income and will probably never return to that level, but that is fine. We are empty nesters now, so we do not have many needs, and I make enough to meet them without being stressed about money. I miss it, but it likely would have killed me, so I guess it was a win. Story 30. Weirdly, I know someone who left a high-paying, relatively low-stress job in fashion retail for a lower-paying, more stressful role in veterinary medicine, and she became much happier. The fashion industry was extremely toxic, and she traveled a lot, which was fun at first, but after a while she just wanted to stay with her family. She took a job as a veterinary assistant, accepted a pay cut, and worked in stressful situations such as surgery and euthanasia, but she found the work more fulfilling. The pay and the stress did not matter to her. She wanted to make a difference, and she did. Story 31. Then there's my role, architect, high stress and aggressively mid-level pay. It's a damn good role, but that rarely matters in this industry. Story 32. My mental health is much better. My last job was stressful because management tried to schedule as many clients as possible and told us to figure it out if we needed more time, then reprimanded us if we went over. Calling in felt like preparing for a court argument. I had to gather data to justify an absence. Now I work on commission and have fewer clients. The management team is the best I have ever worked with, and calling out is as simple as saying I cannot come in today. Story 33. My cousin did this. He left a stressful technology job and now works at a plant nursery. He went from silent mental breakdowns at 2 in the morning to talking to the tomatoes as if they are his children. He is broke now, but he looks 5 years younger. Story 34. I worked as a group leader in a medium to large company, and in addition to program administration, I supervised staff and wrote and delivered performance appraisals. The office was in a high cost of living area, and the closest place I could afford near the office was more than an hour away by car in city traffic. The company had an opening for a field position that paid about $20,000 less but was in a low cost of living area. I took the position and found the technical work without supervisory responsibilities was much more pleasant. My wife and I saw the move as an opportunity to downsize before retirement. Because housing was less expensive in the new area, we were able to buy a larger house. Overall, living there is much easier, and in all it worked out very well. Story 35. Fucking awesome. Right now I'm back in school, so it's medium stress with much less money. Still better than high stress, high paying work. Story 36. I like being in a responsible position, but over time it becomes tiring to be on all the time. Now I work a lower paying, lower stress job that still carries responsibility. I usually do more than required because I enjoy improving people's lives. I love going to work now. It is a great change for me. Story 37. I am so much more at ease. It took me 12 months to accept that I do not need to be in panic mode all the time. Story 38. The pay is awful, but there is considerably less stress overall. I am very fortunate that my wife now earns significantly more money, so things are balanced again. Story 39. I went from a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on-call supervisory role to a lower-level role in a different department and took a 25% pay cut. I did not regret it. It saved me from burning out completely and possibly having a mental health crisis or becoming a full-blown alcoholic. Story 40. I went from a high-stress, high-paying corporate job to owning my own business, which meant a 75% drop in salary. It was the best decision I ever made. Now, for years later, I earned twice my previous salary with far less stress. Story 41. I went from network administrator to information technology field support, and it is great. The job has lower stakes, I get to walk around the site, and I can ignore my work phone outside of office hours. The pay is still decent and it supports my lifestyle. Story 42. I worked offshore in the oil and gas industry more than 10 years ago. That was a period of high salaries, but those levels may no longer exist. I did not leave voluntarily. The entire department was shut down when oil prices fell from $120 to roughly $20 per barrel, and at one point futures traded at negative prices. I missed the money. I know that if I had stayed for 10 years, I could have achieved my financial goals, to buy a house and to build a large retirement savings account. Instead, I had to pivot. Story 43. My ex left a high-stress job and started working at a small local shop. He made much less money but suddenly had hobbies, slept soundly, and stopped picking fights with strangers. Low-stress jobs are basically antidepressants. Story 44. It turns out that the people who said money is not everything were right. Story 45. I went from working more than 60 hours per week in medical research, earning about $80,000, to a 32 hours per week job drawing blood, earning about $48,000. After a few months, I moved to a 40 hours per week position as a park ranger, earning about $35,000. I worked that job for a few years while attending school part-time. It gave me a much-needed break, and I am deeply grateful I was in the financial position to take such a large hit to my income for so long. I am now back in medicine, working a more fulfilling job and earning more money, and I learned the hard way how to manage a healthy work-life balance. Story 46. A low-paid, lower-stress position became, over the course of 10 years, high-stress but still low-paid. Story 47. I moved from a toxic workplace to a better one. With stock appreciation, the new workplace caught up to the former in total compensation. So I lucked out. Story 48. I worked in the forensic pathology field for 6 years before beginning a career in behavioral health in 2020. Mentally, I am exhausted. Story 49. If I had put up with the crap, I would be making so much more money. I would be living in a different city. My day-to-day life would be very different. Story 50. I did this 2 years ago and took a 50% pay cut. I've scaled way back on non-essentials after I discovered many of my choices could be pared down. Mentally, I am a different person. It took a year for my stress and hypervigilance to stop. I am now in a smaller agency with kind, supportive colleagues. I chose an organization that truly values employee well-being instead of just giving it lip service. I strongly encourage doing it if you can. It was something I considered impossible for years because I was so wedded to income. Story 51. It's been so much better. I miss being paid well and furthering my career, but I love my job and team, and I finally have time and energy to give to my life outside of work. Story 52. I went from middle management in a high-stress environment to full-time hourly work-from-home employment, and it was amazing. It was the best thing I ever did. I stopped living to work and started working to live, if that makes sense. I felt like I left the rat race. No regrets. Story 53. Turns out, peace is worth more than a paycheck. Who knew? Story 54. I am paid less than a third of what I used to earn. I do miss the money, but my health has improved so much. My workday usually ends at 5, and I can leave work at work. I no longer mind waking up in the morning. If I do mind, it does not take nearly as much to put me back in a good place. A weekend is enough to recover, and I no longer waste Sundays dreading Monday morning. Story 55. My life is not complete if there is more I can do. Story 56. I took a pay cut of $30 an hour to leave travel nursing and accept a nursing supervisor position. It has done wonders for my mental and physical health, and I am able to spend more time with my family. Story 57. I can't explain the relief. When you get out of the rat race, it's easy to see you've been manipulated into believing work, productivity, and your job title are the most important things. In reality, the people at home and caring for yourself should matter most. Story 58. It was the only way I could stop chasing substances. I left the job about a year and a half ago. I make 1/3 of what I used to, but at least now I have my mental health and sobriety. I am pursuing my education and working a part-time retail job. My future is uncertain, but I am working hard. Story 59. I miss the money. I do not miss waking up at 3 in the morning thinking I was having a heart attack. Story 60. It was not so much that the job was stressful, but that the commute was. My previous job paid $37 per hour with plenty of overtime. I had free meals and snacks, but I had to commute 2 hours each way, so I spent 4 hours a day commuting. I usually left home around 5:30 a.m. and did not get home until about 7 p.m. I hated my life since I never felt like I had any free time. The job involved driving and required me to be alert at all times. At my current job, I make $27 per hour, but it is 10 minutes away. It is also in the same direction as the daycare for my son, so I can take him on the way. Although the lower pay is noticeable, the reduced stress and extra free time are appreciated. Story 61. I just had a haircut. I feel amazing and like I have my life and my mind back. Story 62. I feel like I can breathe again. The anxiety surrounding work has lessened. I keep having to remind myself it's okay to slow down. I still have moments of panic now and then, but it's no longer constant all-day stress. My blood pressure was over 120. I don't doubt that if I had stayed there longer, it would have killed me. I only regret allowing myself to stay as long as I did. Story 63. Do not worry about being wealthy. Focus on being happy. The best decision of my life was taking a lower-paying job that I love. Story 64. It is surprisingly mundane but definitely better for overall mental health. Story 65. I went back to the high-stress job because it paid better. After leaving, I realized I hated being siloed more than I hated the stress. Story 66. I just did it this year. It is not that much less money. I take home $7,000 after taxes, and now I sleep well. I have ample time to work out, eat healthily, and spend time with friends and pursue hobbies. I love it. Story 67. I turned down a role paying $400,000 in on-target earnings at a challenge software company, choosing a local company paying $280,000 in on-target earnings. I knew there would be more freedom and a much better cultural fit. I am deliriously happy. Story 68. I work in an incredibly stressful, intense job. A lot of what has been said here about opening Outlook before bed and then first thing in the morning resonates, plus the long hours and thinking about work most nights and sometimes on weekends. I dream about work often, but I get paid really well. What is strange is that I now cannot turn off. I went to Sri Lanka and the Maldives recently. In Sri Lanka, I was busy sightseeing from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day and did not check email once. In the Maldives, I could not turn off. I was itching to be back at work, bored out of my mind, and felt trapped on the island. So, depending on your mindset, I am not sure some people can really turn off or take their foot off the gas. My biggest fear is actually stopping work. I think I will be bored unless I find hobbies that are so consuming they fill the mental void. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.